Carry
Well,
on. We're still filming.
I'll tell you what we'll do. All right, and I didn't get shit. I'm not doing it then. Hello and welcome to another Telecoms.com podcast. We're doing another of those ones from in the field. This time we're at 5G World in the Excel Centre. Well, it's actually Tech Accelerate, isn't it? Of which 5G World is just one component. So I've got here usual suspects. Got Jamie and Iain showing the sort of battle fatigue after 3 years and maybe a couple of pints at the end of each day. So we'll get crack straight on. What have I seen at 5G World? So it's been a lot of it has been about operators just standing up. Like I wrote a story, there was Swisscom and 3 operators just going, everyone just needs to get on with 5G. The implication being there's hesitation, people are looking for some kind of watertight business case. People want to know that it's definitely going to be all right before they dip their toe in the water. And Jamie, no, I'll hand over to you in a sec. We're just enjoying you hanging your head there, mate. So there's a little bit of let's just get on with it. The rationale being that it's inevitable, so what's the point in delaying? But I know from chatting to you, Iain, before we get over to Jamie here, that you think some of the vibes haven't been so positive.
Well, it's not that they're not positive. I think there's a bit of a sort of underwhelming assessment of 5G at the moment, which kind of ties into what you were saying. I think we both saw that presentation with 3, where he said it's like painting the fourth bridge, rolling out a new network technology. And I think both he and the Swisscom CTO sort of very much played down any likelihood of 5G
being a really big deal
improvement.
Right.
They also played down much likelihood of it leading to a capex boost, which is obviously not what the vendors want to hear.
Yeah, they're saying it's just factored in, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like sort of changing a tyre on your car. Are you going to go out and buy a crappy second-hand tyre that is the sort of thing you could have got 10 years ago, or are you going to get the latest,
which isn't very exciting,
technology?
Is it?
And that's basically what 5G is, I think. It's
a new tyre.
More operators are saying in certain urban hotspots they're facing capacity constraints, and that 5G is the best way to deal with that because it's the latest technology and it's a lot more spectrally efficient than what you get with 4G. So even though you can actually deal with some of these capacity issues by improving your 4G network and using 4G advanced technologies, it just makes more sense to do 5G.
Yeah.
And I think
so it's just a deep pragmatic.
It's just a pragmatic move.
Yeah.
And I think the longer term vision of 5G, which is the hope that it might give rise to new types of service and new use cases. We always hear about remote surgery and connected cars as 2 of those.
Yeah.
But I think you also hear a bit of concern from some of the operators I've been hearing from or speaking with about the readiness of those use cases.
Yeah.
Not as much progress as they'd like to have seen. And are we really going to see 5G getting used to support some of those services?
So we're getting a little bit more of a sort of pragmatic downbeat assessment from operators.
In some ways it's good because things are happening. It's quite quick. The standardisation work's going quickly. I mean, today
it's just today
3GP update on standalone, which is another type of it allows you to do it independently.
It's proper 5G.
And it's all moving really fast, and everybody's quite happy with where the technology is. But I think it's the technology itself sort of reflects some of the operators' own issues. It's a sort of identity crisis as connectivity providers or something a bit more than that. And at the end of the day, in the next few years, all it seems it's going to be is a way of being a better connectivity provider.
I've got some other views on that from chatting to the vendor side, but at risk of losing Jamie entirely, I'm going to loop him in. What about you, Jamie? What have been some of the stuff you've been writing about from the show?
Similar sort of lines to what you guys there. I mean, it's one of the things that I've definitely picked up over the last couple of days. It's the sort of European operators are quite timid. They're looking for the use case. They're not that aggressive. They're looking for every reason not to spend the money, as opposed to looking to go out and spend the money. When you compare them to what's happening over in Korea and what's happening in Japan or China US, and in the US, they're so bullish and they're so aggressive that they're going to roll out networks by the end of the year. It's going to be patchy coverage. It's not going to be the full 5G experience, but it is going to be 5G. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
But even there, it's still going to be, enhanced mobile broadband. Isn't it? It's not like they're going to be doing anything particularly exciting with it. It's just more of an appetite for.
But for me, it's more the attitude. The US operators have said we're going to do this and we're going to do this really quickly and we're going to roll it out rapidly. And when was the last time you could actually say that it wasn't the telcos that was holding up growth in the industry? They're gonna get these networks live, and then they're gonna be nagging the handset manufacturers to get out 5G compatible phones. But it's the complete opposite in Europe. They're timid. They're too risk averse. They just don't want to spend any money by the looks of it.
And looking for excuses like sort of spectrum harmonisation, that sort of thing. Which it doesn't mean those excuses don't have some validity. But yeah, you just hear a bit too much of why we can't do it and not enough. Let's just go stampeding in and see how it goes.
It is, yeah. I mean, and that's the American. That's what the Americans are doing. They're saying we want 5G as quickly as possible.
So Wild West mentality.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they've got a race and they've got a competition, and it's a big sort of like bragging point if you can have the first 5G network up. And I don't think, they don't seem that bothered about it in Europe. 5G will come and it will come eventually. Just like London buses. It'll probably take ages for them to arrive, and then
three of them will come at once.
All the networks will be launched at the same time. So
I've got before we talk about it some more, we got colleague of ours, Elliott, has been here on work experience. So talk about in at the deep end work experience wise. Elliott, why don't you come over here? Did you know much about telecoms and all that sort of thing before you came here this week?
No.
So how have you found it?
Insightful, mostly interesting. Yeah, it's nice just to go around, get to know everyone, get to see what they're talking about, learn a lot, obviously pick up a lot, just chatting to people, walking around, seeing what's going on. Good education.
And you're at university right now, yeah?
Yeah, I'm at University of Sussex.
And what? Studying English?
And philosophy, yeah.
And is that one of the things you thought, when I've got my English and philosophy degree, what I want to be doing is writing about the telecoms industry?
Yeah, for sure, that's exactly what I want. I thought I was going to go down. No, but it's given me all the skills I need to, effectively assess everything. It's maybe getting knowledge easier, write about that knowledge.
Yeah.
Learning is just a lot easier. It all ties into each other.
And I imagine it's useful just to see, when you're at university, everything's theoretical.
Yeah.
It must be useful just to see what people who are actually working for a living have to do to pay the bills.
Yeah, people that aren't in crippling debt thanks to university.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah. No, it's been a really good experience. Just chatting to people, see what they have to say. Teaching me a lot, obviously. I'm not a complete expert in anything. But I have really enjoyed myself.
And you get to get involved in our world famous podcast, which must surely be the icing on the cake for you.
It has, it's really topped off my week.
Cool. All right, well thanks a lot, Elliott. Cheers. One other thought I had on the 5G-ness. So just before this I was chatting to Nokia, and obviously as you expect the vendors are generally more bullish because they want everyone to just spend tons of cash on getting into the whole 5G thing. But they made some good points, like we were talking about how I've in the past taken the piss out of like robotic surgery as a use case.
Yeah.
But this lady Jane, sorry Jane, I've forgotten your surname, pointed out to me that whether it's in sort of robotic surgery or something else, things like haptic feedback. So any kind of remote control, if you need haptic feedback where you actually feel like you're directly in control of this thing, even though it's not near you, you have to have really low latency. Otherwise, that whole haptic feedback just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Any kind of delay, you just don't get that kind of intuitive feel. And so you need things like mobile edge computing, all these other things, because I first heard it from Marcus Weldon from Nokia. It's just a simple physics, speed of light.
Yeah.
If the signal has to go too far, you're going to not have that low latency.
Re-architecting of the network. Orange, who I met earlier, and Jamie did as well, Emmanuel Lugania Del Pon, I think. I might have got that pronounced totally wrong, but
sounds like a good effort.
He's sort of one of the senior pods on the research side at Orange, and he was saying that they kind of see 5G very much in kind of two phases.
Right.
So step one is this sort of capacity boost that people are now talking about quite a lot here. We need to get 5G into densely populated communities and urban areas, maybe late next year or 2020.
Yeah.
But then further on, they're hoping for 5G being used in a much more exciting way to provide some of these connectivity services for vertical markets.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you love that expression, vertical markets.
Vertical war, yeah. That's quite a telco-y thing, verticals.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And therefore that's when you have the need for all sorts of transformation on the network side.
Yep.
Using edge computing, using more virtualization. Building out.
So it's
those
all got to be done.
facilities
The
and putting
potential's huge.
intelligence out there. Yeah, the potential's huge, but the question is whether, and Howard Watson from BT was sort of alluding to this a bit as well in his talk today, is we sort of really need to demonstrate those use cases, and prove that there is a revenue opportunity there, because those investments, I sense, are going to be much more significant than the ones that operators have to make in that first phase.
I think that's the chicken and egg thing. The first time one or two people actually start coining it on the back of this stuff, I reckon everyone else is going to join in. Yeah. So maybe the dam will burst, but everyone's kind of waiting for everyone else to make the first move, you get a feel.
Yeah.
Jamie, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, is it going to be another case of, there's all this, because this ties in with IoT, doesn't it?
And other buzzwords.
The promise of IoT, is this going to be a big sales opportunity for operators in the years ahead, or is it just going to be, a really, really tiny share of their business? And I think that really depends on what kind of companies operators end up becoming. Are they just going to stay as pipe providers, or are they actually going to be able to do things in
add value and services, all that high margin stuff?
I'm not really sure why 5G would help them to do that. It just
but the potential's there.
The potential's there, but then again, it has been in the past, I think. Right. They're not really taking advantage.
No,
of
fair
it,
enough. So it's still a work in progress. We were talking about BT, Jamie. There's been some other BT stuff. The most handsome man in Telecoms has been up on stage. We wrote a little bit about that, and then you also sort of wrote some speculative stuff. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about some of the Gavin Patterson stuff we've been writing about?
Yeah, well, so he's out the door.
Yeah.
And they say, second half of the year they're going to have a replacement, which is pretty much, apparently in 3 weeks.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Technically.
But it's just. I know you did a sort of piece where you just sort of had a look at all the potential contenders.
Yeah, like runners and riders, didn't you?
Yeah. But I think we both did.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the next decision has to be a technical person. It can't be a finance person. It can't be a marketer. It's got to be someone.
Yeah, we don't want another marketer.
So another marketer. Look what the disaster happened there. So that basically, that rules Alera out.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah.
And you don't want a finance person, because this is a time where you want to be spending aggressively. So that rules out the CFO plus a few of the other people that you mentioned. So I think the CEO of Telia, is it? She's
Tele2.
Tele2, so she's from a finance background.
Yeah.
So you need someone who's really technical, because ultimately the shortfall of BT is that customer experience is not very good. They're not a very customer-centric business, and ultimately they focus on all the bells and whistles, not the core network.
Yeah.
And I think if you hire someone who is from an engineering background or a technical person, you will have the focus of the business will shift onto the network.
So maybe
I think the other option would be somebody who's got sort of obviously industry expertise, but has maybe got experience on the regulatory side as well.
Yeah.
Which raises two names. One I think is Liv Garfield, who's at Seven Water and previously worked at OpenReach, and the other Stephen Carter, who's obviously CEO of Informa.
Well, you say that. The other option, which no one's really mentioned, Clive Selly is a good option because he's slightly detached.
Yeah.
He's an engineer. He knows the BT business, but he's detached as being part of OpenReach from the calamity that has been the last couple of years. The other option, which is really no one's really mentioned, is Sharon White. That's one of the big issues BT are facing now is that they've got a terrible relationship with Ofcom. Bringing in someone who can smooth that over the cracks there,
or again, someone who was at Ofcom back in the day.
Yeah.
So it begs the question: if they nick our CEO, are you going to put your hat in the ring? Yeah.
Why not? I'm up for it.
We'll all have a go.
I'm up for stepping
I
up
could
a
do
few
that.
levels.
How difficult can it be? Do a few spreadsheets, have a few meetings, have a few lunches, bish bash bosh. No worries. Okay, so that's the show, and we're sort of nearly at the end of it. Let's talk about one or two other things that have gone on this week. Because typically, while we're here, sort of mainly covering the show, there's been some actual other news going on. So we've had in the US, they've approved AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner.
Someone's approved it.
So Judge has. So
I think they have some more loops to go through. Or
well,
no?
largely.
No,
so I mean,
they wasn't it? It got shot down that they couldn't challenge it rather than being approved.
well, so the US government went, hold on a sec, this isn't good for consumers because now AT&T can like force people to subscribe to AT&T if they want to watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And this judge went through it all, and he went, nah, that's fine, no worries.
I'm an AT&T customer anyway.
Yeah, whatever. I think, I was slightly surprised because there are some competition concerns there.
Yeah.
Especially in the US where you've got, some people only have one broadband provider.
Yeah.
So, what if AT&T is your only broadband provider and then they want to charge you 200 quid to watch Game of Thrones and there's nothing you can do about it? Anyway.
I think it's an issue, yeah.
There is that, but then again, I find the whole sort of massive consolidation of telecommunications companies and content companies interesting, and it'll be interesting to see. Most people reckon, I think, like reading when you guys wrote it up, you quoted Ed Barton, who was in our pod that we did from Mobile World Congress, and he was saying how he reckons the floodgates will open. We've lost one. He reckons the floodgates will open for other sort of media and telecoms consolidation, and that could get interesting. And maybe for us as consumers, we'll suddenly end up with these super bundles with lots of other cool stuff, but then we might get ripped off. So that remains to be seen. What else was going on this week? ZTE.
Yeah.
They made a comeback. Did you write about that? Why don't you?
I did. Yeah.
I've been banging on. Why don't you tell us about it?
So they've obviously been in trouble for a while because they have this ban on buying US components, which dates back to last year originally.
Yeah.
Then they were sort of found, after that ban got lifted, they were found not to have sort of put their house in order, and essentially had another ban came into effect this year, and that's crippling for them because they rely so heavily on US.
Yeah, and they basically threw in the towel and went, "This is just we can't."
They stopped trading and they stopped trading and they ceased business operations. Then there's been a move to allow them to kind of return to business, provided they pay a pretty big fine.
Yeah.
I think it's $1 billion, and then putting another 100 million in.
Yeah, just sitting around in case they get funny ideas.
Yeah, and they've also had to change their entire management. So
yeah, they've had to sack everyone, haven't they?
It's not just the board of directors. It's like
we should have applied for that.
HBP
Never mind Informa. We should apply for ZTE. They've got a lot of vacancies there, haven't they?
So they basically got back into action this week. They resumed trading, but the shares dived about 40%.
40%, yeah. So it's still a long way to go.
And apparently, I think there's news today about them having some kind of credit financing agreement. I don't know with reports.
But they're on the grounds for like $11 billion.
And they've named some new directors as well, I think, today. But I mean, they're under such scrutiny now by the US, aren't they? That they're almost. They almost have the sort of US watchdogs actually inside.
Yeah, exactly. They've just got to be so squeaky clean. Probably so squeaky clean that they might be compromised.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Can they make all the changes that have been required of them and still manage to be a contender?
And it's quite humiliating. I mean, the amount they've had to prostrate themselves at the feet.
Well, they'd already paid a $900 million fine last year. So it's.
So Jamie, you just grabbed your phone to see what news we've been covering.
Yeah.
Did any other things catch your eye? I know you wrote about BT again today. Was there anything else that you wanted to flag up?
Well, I mean, nothing really. I mean, this is my problem with this event is that it kind of just shows how much of a sort of a bad situation we are in sort of Europe compared to the rest of the world in terms of moving forward with the digital economy. I mean, for me, I'm actually leaving quite negative in that I'm not that confident that Europe is going to be able to, fulfil these ambitions and actually, be a major player
Iain's a bit like that as well.
Top of the digital economy. Yeah. The one thing that the one positive I suppose you can take away from it is that the UK government turned around and they said, we're not going to get involved with.
We're Matt Hancock, didn't we?
Yeah, so he turned around, Minister for Fun. He just turned around. He said, we're not.
He had his half hour.
Yeah, we're not going to actually get involved in the actual business of deploying networks. We're going to regulate you, but we're going to be relatively hands off and let you do it yourself. And he pointed back
that
to.
When I see it.
Well, yeah, but he did point back to. He said the which was the mobile infrastructure project from a couple of years ago, where the government was supposed to be putting up in sort of various poles to address not spots, and he just said, it was an absolute disaster. So we've learned our lesson there.
Okay,
but
well, that's good. A bit of contrition from a politician. That's never a bad thing, is it?
I'm still sceptical whether the busybody bureaucrats can keep their hands to themselves, because when there's a PR opportunity to say, look, we delivered your cat videos faster, put me on the front page so I can get my pearly whites and a few extra votes at the next general election. I think as soon as someone actually has that opportunity, they'll do it.
But I think they're, and this was mentioned in the show actually, the regulators and the government, they sort of fiddle and intervene and get criticised for that. But in terms of where public sector funding goes, I think it's pretty disappointing, and I think it was a guy from Virgin who said this as well, that the government's spending billions, tens of billions on a railway link, HS2, that goes up to Birmingham and beyond. I think the guy from Virgin described it really well. He said there's spending whatever the amount is, but it's tens of billions on a 200-year-old technology.
Indeed.
And why do we need that to shorten journey times by 40 minutes? And
if we all had fibre to the home, we wouldn't need to hop on the train.
You look at what's happening in markets like South Korea, where there was huge government funding for a big broadband run 20 years ago, and as a result of which they've got some of the fastest connections in the world. And that's surely what government should be thinking about. They claim to be doing helping the industry along and doing things, but I don't really see them doing anything at all apart from nitpicking and sort of
fair enough. So it seems general vibe we're getting, sort of collective vibe, is that we've had a sort of sense of sort of taking the temperature of where 5G is right now, and the feeling is that I don't know, it's a bit underinvested. People need to just be all in, whether it's government, whether it's operators, whether it's vendors. People need to be a bit more all in. I've had plenty of positive chats, but I still get that slight sense that we're at that sort of calm before the storm. Everyone's still waiting. We're going to actually see devices early next year, and people are still like, well, is that going to catalyse anything or not?
And devices is a big issue, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah.
Because that's what Vodafone was saying. It's like the one thing they can't control is on the devices side, and that's really that's one of the things that is outside there. So I suppose it has some influence, but they don't really know when we're going to improve certainty when mass market devices are going to start becoming available.
Well, Qualcomm said first half of next year, but what the nature of those devices are going to be, whether they're going to be viable commercial ones, I don't know. And whether or not
Apple's probably more like 2020.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've heard that.
And that's what is that about 60% of the UK market or something?
No, I think we heard someone talking about it. I think the Swisscom guy said it's 60% of the Swiss market.
Right.
It might be about half of the UK market. Back when I used to track these things, it was more like 40%, I think. So I don't know how it's changed. It's pretty high. So maybe we'll have about in summary, we'll have about another year of going, oh, we're nearly there, but not quite.
Yeah.
But maybe at this event, this time next year, we'll go, we're there! 5G! Yeah! 5G rocks!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, nice one, guys. And thanks again for listening. Make sure you join us for the next one.